Coming up next on the Union Label will be a conversation with Larry Cumbee, former employee of the General Tire and Rubber Company plant in Mayfield and now a student here at the college. Please join us. Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. You went to work at what we call in Western Kentucky the tire plant in 1981.
1979.
Sorry, 1979, beg your pardon.
Yeah.
And were there for how long?
A little over 25 years.
25 years.
Yes, sir.
Now, as we were coming over talking, you did what many Western Kentuckians did for years. Right out of high school, you went to Detroit to work.
Yeah, I graduated in May of 1971, and I've got an older brother. Actually, he's your age. I think he went to school with you. His name's Hurley.
Mm-hmm.
And he got me a job at Chrysler Corporation. And I stayed up there for maybe 8 months and was making good money, but just, let's say, the big city life, I didn't care for it very much, so I came back down here.
And that's one of the things, a very important thing that these plants in our region did is give Western Kentuckians a chance for these good paying union jobs close to home. In Mayfield at General, Ingersoll Rand, West Vaco, the Calvert plants, the atomic energy plant here in Paducah. What did the union mean to you as an individual?
Well, for me and my family both, it was a lot better wages, a lot better benefits. I worked on jobs, of course, I got right out of high school, and I worked through the UAW, SC for Chrysler,
Mm-hmm.
and I made good wages there. But I came back down here, and it was really slim pickings, and I went back to almost minimum wage, and I worked for that until 1979, from 72 to 79. And I got married, and of course we had children. And I didn't like factory work, to be honest, but I saw that that's where the money was, so that's what I had to do. So that's when I started at the tire plant, and it paid really good wages. And you know, I'm thankful that I had the job, but there were drawbacks to it. It was a really hard place to work. It was bad conditions, especially back in the late 70s, early 80s. But overall, I mean, it paid really well. So it helped my family out.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel when you heard the plant was pulling out?
Well, we had been expecting it for actually for several years. No, it wasn't a surprise because they had closed Waco. This was the oldest plant that they had left, and they, for the last 2 to 3 contracts, which covered 6 to 9 years, they'd always said, well, we're going to close this plant because it's the oldest one. It costs more to operate, so it wasn't a big surprise to us. But of course, it was a disappointment. But it wasn't really surprising.
Mm-hmm. Now, the union offered to work with the company to keep this plant open.
They certainly did. They, the company came up with this figure of let's say $35 million that needed to be cut, and the union said where, and the company, well, I don't know, we just need $35 million. That's what we were led to, as he believed. So
your impression was they were intending to close it no matter what?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir, they were. And actually, quite frankly, it looked like the same thing's happening in Charlotte, North Carolina right now.
Mm-hmm. 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 And at one time, that plant employed, what, 2,000 people?
Yeah, here at Mayfield, it was actually, I think it was close to 2,100 at its peak one time, salary and union people both.
And that was, of course, not just Graves County, it was all over the Purchase and even West Tennessee and Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
To come to that plant. Well, when you went to work there in 1979, had you planned on that being your life's work?
No, but I was like a whole lot of people. It was just something to, you know, kind of just, well, move on down the road a little bit, make some money. But of course, it ended up, there's very few good paying jobs here, or you know, then there were. You can get trades like now going to school here, which is what I hope to do. But, you know, for somebody just, let's say with a high school diploma, it's $35,000, $40,000 a year job. That just, you know, that doesn't drop it into somebody's lap nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some schooling.
And the thing, of course, the benefit of those jobs is it boosts the whole economy.
Yes,
Because young people, when they went to work at the plant back in the 60s, one of the first things they do is go to Bill Drivers and buy a new Plymouth Roadrunner. And older people would buy a house and furniture, and it really pushed the economy up. And the loss of this plant is just devastating to the economy of Western Kentucky. Well, when you were young and going on, I guess you assumed the plant was always going to be here?
Yeah, yeah, for the most part, up until probably the last 6 or 9 years, something like that. And after they closed Waco, you know, we started getting warning bells off of, hey, you know, this is our future right down the road, you know. So, but yeah, you know, we, of course, you know, younger, you think things are going to go on forever, which, you know, luckily for most of us, they did last long enough. And of course, there were a whole lot of people that they got kind of a raw deal here at the end.
Now, this basically started after Continental bought the plant, I'm assuming,
Yes,
from the O'Neill family in Akron, General Tire. It became the Continental General Tire Company.
Right.
And, well, did you notice there on the factory floor a different tone in the management from the O'Neills to Continental?
Yeah, just, you know, just out on the floor, because, you know, we didn't have a whole lot to do with what went on up corporate and out in the front office and the negotiations with the union and the company. But we saw, you know, from negotiation from contract to contract, they always wanted more and more and more and more concessions. But what made us so angry was there were several contracts that we did give concessions, and it just boosted the you know, company executive salaries, and, you know, tire prices never did go down. So, I mean, we were just donating you know, we saw that we were donating our money to the Continental. But yeah, they, you know, they changed a little bit from whenever they changed from private ownership. You could always, you know, you could negotiate, it seemed like, with the company when it was American, but, you know, once the Continental bought it, it was, I mean, they were hard to deal with. They really were.
Of course, they're in Germany.
Yeah, yeah.
And not in the United States.
Yeah.
You're 53?
I'll be 53 at the end of this year.
Well, you're sort of, of course, I'm 56, and I consider us in sort of an awkward age. We're not kids anymore, but we're not retired either. We've still got a few miles left on our odometers.
Yep.
How difficult has that been for you? You had this job that you assumed you would have till you were 65 and retire, 62 and retire. And now at the age of 53, you've got to start all over again.
It was very difficult, to be honest with you. Now, me personally, I had a little bit of a jump on some of the guys. I had been down here to school in 1997 taking carpentry, and I knew a little bit about what going to school, back to school would entail, but it was still pretty tough, you know, to adjust to it. But now, I mean, I like it. I'm thinking about, you know, maybe even going on if I can do that. But it's a difficult transition for me and my wife, and of course, luckily my kids are grown now, and that's allowed me to do this. If I'd had, you know, 2 small children at home, which a lot of those guys out there did, that'd been an entirely different situation. I know some of those guys were, you know, they were probably pretty desperate.
Well, of course, that's the big question to me is you lose these really good union factory jobs. How do you replace them around here?
Barry, I don't know. I mean, This is one way to do it. Go to school and try to get some type of trade or career as a profession. But as far as jobs like that, manufacturing jobs, my opinion is this country is losing them at a tremendous rate. Not just here, but it's all nationwide. But I don't know how to replace them.
Well, you mentioned that they cut your wages, cut your benefits, but they didn't cut the price of tires. I was talking to a laid-off steel worker she's from up in, I believe, Morganfield, Kentucky, worked at a plant there, and the production went overseas to a cheap labor country. And she said, they're going to make these products overseas that we used to make here, then they'll come back in the United States. Who will be able to afford to buy them?
Yes, sir. That's right.
And that is something that's true. You think about that. And these tires that Continental, I know they said they wanted to make tires cheaper, but will they lower the price of these tires?
Well, they haven't yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen it, but we've had cutbacks in the past, and of course, we've never seen the price go down. We gave SC concessions in probably '96 and '92, and I mean, it didn't change things. It just kind of moved the money from here to there.
So usually when a corporation says we need to sacrifice, that means you need to sacrifice.
Yes, that means that's right. The workers need to sacrifice.
Right. Right. Now the local there in Mayfield, 665, went from the rubber workers to the steel workers, and it ended up as a steel workers local. Are you going to miss the comradeship of your union brothers and sisters?
Yes, sir, I am. Actually, I talked to Terry Bean, the president of SC Local 665, and I asked what him and Wayne Chambers, the vice president, what was going to happen to them, and he said they were going to stay on until probably June or July, something like that, of 2007, and then after that, we had problems and stuff. We'd have a toll-free number that we could call, and I said, "Oh boy, I've had experience with those before."
Yeah.
I've tried calling the Internal Revenue Service. That doesn't work too well.
Right.
But yeah, of course, we always had SC monthly SC meetings. There was always some of us getting together. We had bass tournaments, golfing outings, and this and that, and it's going to be different. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. There are some union retiree groups here and there. I know there's a group here in Paducah called, it was AIM Unite, which is part of the, actually it came out of the old clothing workers union, and it's a group for union retirees. Mm-hmm. And that might be something to investigate. But I think that's an aspect of this plant closing that people haven't thought about, is you worked with people for years and years and years, and all of a sudden, very suddenly and abruptly, that all changes.
Yeah, I've made some of the best friends that I've ever had, down there through the years. And, now, that we're not together, and of course, we were thrown together on a almost daily basis for years and years, and now there's a lot of them I see maybe once every 2-3 months, something like that, and it's really strange. Mm-hmm. It really is.
And that's another interesting aspect of unions is the social aspect, bass tournaments. So they used to have union picnics, and of course, the Labor Day program here. Local 665 had a float in that, and I was talking to Wayne Chambers afterwards, and he said, it's hard to believe that this might be the last parade, although I think they're hoping to maybe have some kind of an entry in the float next year or the year after. Now, the program that you are going to school under, tell us a little bit about that program.
It's a TRA program. It's federally funded, and it pays for all our schooling. It pays us a stipend whenever, as long as we make like a C average, which we haven't had trouble with. But it's good for up to 2 years from the date of the layoff, which was December 2004, and it's a really good program. I mean, it's helped a lot of us. I just talked to a friend of mine out in the hall a while ago, Dennis. I forget his last name, but he got his business major let's see, down here just this last semester. So he's doing real well. And, you know, there's a lot of people, like everybody, they gripe about paying taxes and stuff. I do too. I'm sure you do, you know, all of us do.
Part of being an American, I guess.
That's right. But part of them, you know, this goes to me, it's a good purpose. You know, it's, you know, that's...
Well, now, what are you studying to be here so far?
Well, I've taken carpentry. Actually, let's see, that's what I started back in '97, and I had about 60 hours, so I was almost done with it. And I decided just to go ahead and get my 2-year degree, and then, you know, from there I'll see what happens. But
An associate degree?
Yes, sir.
And then maybe transfer to Murray State or something?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Maybe, I don't know yet, but maybe. Actually, your class has got me interested in history pretty much. It was always a boring subject in high school, but I like it now.
Now, I, of course, paid him to say that.
Okay, yeah, you're behind on payments too.
Well put, well put. And that's the thing too that I really enjoy about teaching here is we have the non-traditional students, and you are definitely a non-traditional student. Well, when you decided to go back to school, were you a little bit afraid, thinking, I haven't been back in school for all these many years, what's going to happen to me? Did you have those feelings?
Sure, sure. In high school, I had 2 years of algebra, and when I took the compass test here, I made like a 20 on it, which was abysmal.
I would have made about a 6.
Yeah,
but,
it was.
yeah.
I mean, it was like Greek. But
Yeah.
I took a remedial course, and then I took an accredited math course and had like a 96, 97 average in it. So it was scary at first, but you know, once you start doing it, you know, some of that stuff comes back to you.
Well, I can tell you this, statistically speaking, that the older you are, the better you're going to do in school. Non-traditional students generally do better than younger students, and you would think it would be just the opposite, but it's not true. And I think part of that is, you know why you're here.
Yeah.
You've got a serious purpose, whereas by no means not all young students don't have a purpose, but I think you've been out in the world and things haven't worked out. You've got a purpose to be here, and we're glad you're here. It's a lot of fun having people in class who are. You get the jokes. You get the age jokes. You know, with these kids, if I tell a joke from the '60s, you get it, and the rest of them kind of look like okay. Anyway, so you got to watch those jokes when you're an old person like that. So the future holds. You might even wind up being a teacher or something.
Who knows? Now that I've got my retirement started, possibly, you know, it's just going to open up some new doors for me. I'm not going to be pressed for things as much as I thought I was. So, yeah, it's.
Well, now, how did the retirement work? Because you obviously are not retirement age.
If you had 25 years in, all right, that's what the controversy was about back in 2004. If the plant closed, anybody with 25 years seniority, no matter their age, I mean, they draw their full retirement. And, or if they were 55 years old, they could draw whatever they had. Well, they kept a skeleton crew there of about 120 people.
And didn't you all suspect that was the purpose for that?
Certainly it was. Certainly it was. And really they're doing the same thing in Charlotte, North Carolina. They're keeping the skeleton crew there. But that was so that they could rule that the plant was not closed.
Not technically closed.
So
right.
they didn't have to pay all the pension and the severance pay. But now that they have, we fall under that clause. So, you know, they had to pay us, which was, I mean, it was a godsend, really. It was a long, hard struggle for Terry Bean and the union. But, you know, let's see, I certainly have to give them credit. They stuck it out.
Well, you're in school. In fact, I have several students who are general tire employees, former general tire employees. What are the rest of the folks doing? Are they leaving the area, or?
Actually, there's a lot of them finding jobs, but they're not as well paying as what that one was. You know, that's of course, a lot of them has to do with children, if they've got children and homes here, and if they can move. There's been two or three that has moved from here. But there's some that's found, like one couple I know, his wife just stayed home and was, a housewife, but now she's gotten a job. He's gotten one that's, lower paying, but it's.
And that makes a big difference in your family right there. You have completely changed your style of living where both couples have to work to equal one good paying a job at the tire plant. And that's a big adjustment right there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. That's, to me, that's where a lot of the social problems come from is, not, both parents having to work in a home, but I don't know what, I don't know what we can do about it other than vote. That's about it.
And that's the other thing too,
Change
you talk
laws.
in terms of it, it's Larry Sanderson, who's with was for years the business manager of the Plumbers Local 184 here in Paducah, he's going to the international. But he says it's all politics, but yet so few people, young people especially, are interested at all. They don't see a connection between that. But you do from your experiences.
Yes, sir, there is. I mean, I was the same way when I was younger. Actually, I probably didn't vote until I was about 24, 25 years old. But once I got started, and the longer I lived, I thought that's a big thing. That's.
How do you convince young people that voting is important? Young union members.
Barry, I don't know. We had probably half of them out there on our roll that a contract would come up and they wouldn't vote, and I mean that was their livelihood. That was how they
wouldn't
made
even
their
vote
money.
on a contract.
Wouldn't even vote on a contract. I don't get that. I mean,
Well, that's about as personal as it gets.
yeah. I mean, that's your money. That's your bread and butter right there. And they just acted like, well, whatever will be, will be. But I mean, that's all we have is just one man, one vote.
Wow. And of course, then in terms of political offices, it's the same, or even
Right.
the picture's even bleaker than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing too, and I've talked to a lot of union folk, is getting people to come to union meetings. People don't usually come to union meetings. Any ideas as to how you could stimulate interest in that?
Maybe try to stress importance to them that this is their livelihood. They need to be involved in what's going on, and take an interest. Of course, from reading the news and magazines, I believe union membership has dropped probably dramatically in the last 20 years. But, I've had 2 union jobs and probably about 5 or 6 or 7 non-union jobs. And the union jobs were always a lot better paying, than the non-union jobs. The benefits were better, and you can tell, young people things like that, but I don't know, sometimes it's hard to get through to them. They think, well, I'll just, I'll do this a while, but I've been down that same road myself.
Well, one thing, and I was talking to he was an officer, one of the machinist locals over at the Calvert plants, and he said that, of course, those are good union jobs, that when a person is hired in one of those plants, lots of times they're coming from a low-wage job, and they said, well, okay, you're going to go to work here, you're going to get this much an hour, you're going to get this in benefits, you're going to get this in vacation, and they assume that the company gave it to them. And he said where the union falls down is they ought to be telling these kids, the union won you these wages, these benefits, and these hours.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The company, these companies will never give us nothing as far as I'm concerned, but, it's always hard fought, most of it too. And it has been all the way back since unions were formed. I mean, it's been a struggle against, it's like a monster, giant. And it takes a lot of numbers to do it, and that's what's scary, because union membership is falling, and that's.
But of course, you can see why. Here's a plant that employed 2,000 people. They've shut the plant and they moved production, I believe, was it to Malaysia and
Let's see, Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah, and I think they had one plant in Mexico that they were starting up.
Right. And these are low-wage countries, not many regulations, not many environmental laws, and this is what they're doing. Somebody told me, and I believe it, that what Continental did in Mayfield would have been illegal in Germany.
Probably would have, sir. Probably
that
would
they
have.
couldn't.
I mean,
And
their
didn't
union
you all
had
send
more
some
rights.
representatives over to meet with some of the German unionists?
If I'm not mistaken, Terry Bean
I believe
may
he
have
did.
went. He may have been, you know, but as far as accomplishing anything, I don't see that it did.
I mean, they were very sympathetic, but what could they do because this is a different country?
Yeah.
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 I don't know whether the decisions that, you know, that have been made and are being made, whether they're made in this country or in Germany. You know, that's something, of course, I don't know. But it's got some dire consequences, that's for sure.
Have you heard any talk what will become of that factory itself? It's a huge building.
No, of course, there's been rumors we've heard of, more tire companies, Toyo possibly, being interested in it, or Firestone, but that's just rumor.
Well, I hadn't heard those rumors.
Yeah, that's been floating around actually since about 2004, but there's nothing concrete.
So the machinery is still in the plant?
Barry, I don't know. I mean, I haven't been in there since 2004. I'm sure that a lot of it is gone. They still had the Banburys running, mixing the rubber.
Right.
But the rest of the plant, I have no idea. They were starting to make part of it, which I worked back in what they call final finish, and they were starting to make it into more warehouse space. But as far as like the radio tire room, I have no idea.
Well, now, the plant is supposed to officially close entirely by, is it February?
Yes, sir. They said February 1st, I believe.
And how many are actually left as we speak here in the fall?
It seems like they've got about 60 left. I'm not sure about that, but they've had an attrition rate through SC retirement, and of course they knew this was coming, so they didn't fill jobs. They just scaled back, but they're just actually, for all intents and purposes, we look for them to be done by that's at Christmas. I mean, New Year's, but they may stretch it out till February, but get some of the small stuff wrapped up. But that's up to them.
Well, I've noticed that in the big parking lots, they're empty now, and grass is growing, and it's when you drive by that plant, we've got about 30 seconds. What do you think when you drive by it now?
I didn't think I would ever miss it, but actually, I don't miss the plant, but I miss some of the people there. That's that's the main thing, and of course, I miss the money. That's that's a large SE consideration, but I hate it for a lot of other younger guys that had like 20 years or something other, and they're in their mid 40s or 50s like me, and it's hard to find a decent job now whenever you get that age. I know there's not supposed to be discrimination, but there may be.
We're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank y'all for having me very much.
My guest today was Larry Cumbee, formerly of United Steelworkers, Local 665 in Mayfield at the General Tire Plant. I'm Barry Craig. We'll see you next time.